So before we start today's session, in the previous session we saw one of the data types, that is strings, and that means basically any text you have that would be a string. Now in Python there are many other data types as well, like int and floats and other single variable data types. But there are also data types which are collections, like list is one data type. So list is whenever we have a collection of text, collection of numbers, or a combination of text and numbers, any kind of collection in Python, it is stored as a list. That is one of the data types to store a collection of things. Now let's see how this collection works. So let's say I create a new variable fruits and I say equals, within square brackets I say apple within quotes, comma, banana within quotes, and then square brackets close. So anything that is within this square brackets is a list, and list is a data type within Python that represents a collection. So for example, if we run this, if we check the type of fruits, it says it's class list, and if we print fruits, it would print the entire thing. Now in this list, each element has a unique index and the numbering starts from 0. So which means that apple is the 0th element of the list, whereas banana is the first element of the list. And if we want to print a specific element based on the list, based on the index, we can use this syntax. We say the list name, and within square brackets we specify the index for the item which we want to access. So if I say print fruits within square brackets 1, so this should print banana because indexing starts from 0. Okay, so this is how list works. Similarly, we can have list of numbers as well. For example, we create some list. This is a variable name. This could be anything. Numbers equals 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And then we say print numbers. So it prints the entire list. And then we can also use slicing within the list. If you remember the slicing syntax, we say print numbers, square brackets, again the slicing syntax, and then we say 1 to 4, 1:4. So start at 1, end at 4. So this would be interpreted as, because again the indexing starts from 0. So 10 is 0, 20 is 1. So our slice would start at 1, and then we'll have 0, 1, 2, 3 till 1 minus n position. So that's 20, 30, 40, and that's why we got 20, 30, 40. Okay. And based on what was one of the questions that was asked yesterday about printing either odd numbers or even numbers. So let's say we have a list. And for this list, if you want to print alternate numbers, so I hope now you will be able to have the syntax that how you can print alternate number if you remember slicing. So you start from the beginning, go till the end, and take a step of 2. So if you do this, you should get this. Okay, so whoever asks this question, I hope you have the answer now. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So now one of the things about list is that you can change the list. It's not a constant thing that you cannot be changed, but you can add elements to a list or this collection, and you can also remove elements from this collection. So let's see how we can add elements to this list. For that we have this append function. So we say fruits dot append mango within quotes, and then we say print fruits. So now the mango gets appended because previously we had apple and banana, and now we have mango as well. And we can check the length of the fruits, that means how many elements are there in the fruits, by using the len function. So we have len is equal to 3. Okay. Now sometimes we want to just a second. Sorry about that. Okay. So, so we have, let's say we have two lists, and then we want to combine these two lists. So if we use append function, so let's say we have fruits, apple, banana, and fruits 2, pineapple, cherry. Okay. Now, if we use append function, let me just comment this one. So what this would do is, it would take, if we are doing fruits dot append fruits 2, so it would take this list, entire list, and append it to fruits as a single element. So we'll see how it looks like. So we do print fruits, and then we say print len fruits. Let's run this. So we get this output: apple, banana, that was our first list, fruits, and then we get this comma, this third thing, which is itself is a list. The entire fruits 2 has been appended to the fruits 1. And if we see, if we check the length of this fruits, it says length 3. That means there are total 3 elements. First 2 are these single fruits, and the third element is this, the appended list. Now let's say if we don't want to append this list, rather we want to append the individual element of this list. So in that case, we'll use the extend function. Uncomment this one. Yeah. So we say fruits equals apple comma banana, fruits 2 equals pineapple cherry, fruits 2 dot extend. So this is different from append. Extend fruits 2, and then we again print fruits, and again we print length fruits. So this time we have apple, banana, pineapple, cherry as individual fruits, and the total number of fruits is 4. The length of the list is 4. Okay. Then we can also, because if you use extend and append, it would automatically add elements to the end of the list. Let's say if you don't want that, if you don't want elements to be appended at the end of the list, but you want elements to be inserted at a specific position within the list. So in that case, you can use the insert function, where it says fruits dot insert 1 comma grapes. That means you are saying the index at which you want to add in the new element, and what is the element that you want to add. So that's how you'll get grapes at index 1, because the numbering starts from 0. So the apple would remain at 0th position, and grapes get added to the first position. Okay. So similarly, there are functions to remove element from the list. For example, let's say we have a list fruits, and if we say fruits dot pop, so this pop function, what it does is it removes the last element from the list, whichever that element is, and returns that as a separate and returns that element, so which you can also save in a variable. So we say last underscore fruits, this is a new variable name, this could be any name, and then we say fruits dot pop. So if we say print fruits, it prints apple, banana, pineapple, and then if we print the last fruit only, then it would say the last one, which is cherry, because our list has. Let's just run this. Yeah, so this would give us apple, banana, pineapple as the new list with last element removed, and the last element itself is saved in the last underscore fruit. If we don't want to add cherry in the list, then how will we do that? With the help of extend. No, so in that case, you can use append. You can append one element if you want to append only one element, or you can extend using slicing. Let's say if you don't want to add the last element, you can take this just the first. You can extend using fruits only the 0th part, something like this. So you will append only the first element. And if you want to have, like, there are only two elements, if you have multiple elements and you don't want, let's say, last few, so you take a slice of the list and then extend with that slice. Does that answer you? I hope that answers your question, Hadia. Okay. So this is then overview. This is an overview of list, and there are some list functions that you can use to work when you're working with list. So there are some things there are some functions available to you to work with this, like sorting. If you want to sort a list of numbers, a list of text, you can use the sort function. By default, the sorting is in uh, ascending order for numbers and alphabetical orders for text data. But if you want to sort it in a descending order or reverse alphabetical order, then you can use this argument, keyword argument, reverse equals true. So in this example, when you have fruits, this is our list, and we say print fruits dot count. Okay, this is count function, can count how many times a particular element appears in a list. So this function alone, let's comment all these. So this function alone will give you 2 if you say print fruits dot count banana. So just counting how many times this element appears in the list. And if I say fruits dot reverse, and then if I say print fruits, so it would reverse the order of elements in the list. And then if I say sort, so since it's a text, so it would sort based on alphabetical order. So A, B, C, M, P. Okay. And if I want this sorting to be in reverse alphabetical order, I can give reverse equals true. And this time it's in reverse alphabetical order. So these are some utility functions available with list. So whenever you have collections, you can easily do these kind of sorting and rearranging the elements. Okay, a quick quiz. Let's say you have a list of numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How will you print 4? What command will you give? So we have nums equal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a pretty easy one. You can type in the chat box.
You can give the index.
Yes, based on index, but command you can just type in the chat box. What exactly would you type? You have nums equal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we want to print 4. This 4. So what command you'll write? You can type it in the chat box. Nums3. Yes, print nums3, that's right. So if we have okay, so I have not done that. I have not initialized nums. Yeah, so P should be small. Print, when we say print, it should be small. Yeah, nums4. No, nums4 won't work. See, since remember the indexing starts from 0. So nums4 would print 5 and not 4. So you need to say nums3. That would print this number 4, fourth element. Okay. Okay, so that was about lists. So let's move on to the next topic, which is loops. Okay, now these loops and conditional, these are some of the very important concepts. Not only they are important, they are very frequently used when you're doing coding. Many a times we need to do things, some task repeatedly, and that's where these loops comes handy. If there is a particular task you need to do again and again, that's why you use, let's say you have to do a particular task 10 times. So instead of writing those tasks 10 times in your code, you will write a loop that would do the task 10 times. So let's see how this, what's the syntax for the loop. So let's say we have a collection of numbers 1 2 3 4 5, and we want to multiply each number by 2. Whatever collection we have, I mean, here we have short collection of only 5 numbers. We could have 100 numbers or 1000 numbers, and we want to multiply each number by 2, whatever that number is. So the concept behind for loop is that you take some variable, any variable x, y, or any variable name, and one by one assign that element by each element to the x. So if there are 5 elements, one by one x would have value of each of the elements. X first, in one's first round x would be 1, in second round x would be 2, in third round x would be 3, and so on. And then you multiply x with 2. So whatever that x is, you multiply it by 2. So that's how you will get, so 1 multiplied by 2 equals 2 in the first round. In the second iteration, 2 multiplied by 2 4. In third iteration, 2 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 2 6, and so on. This is the briefly the overall schematic of the for loop, how the looping works. Now let's look at the syntax, that when you're coding, what commands you will type. So we have this variable list of numbers. This is a variable name. This could be any name. And then we say 1 to 5. We have 5 numbers. Now what we want to do is we want to multiply each number by 2, and we don't want to say 1 multiplied by 2, 2 multiplied by 2, and so on. We do it in a for loop, because remember that list can be of any length, not just 5. So we have for, this is the syntax for the for loop, for space, and then we have some variable name. In this case it's raised to the power, because we have 2 asterisks. Yes, correct. So we have for x in list of numbers colon. So this line syntax is for some variable name, this could be any name, in, and the list, whichever list you are working on, colon. And then in the next line there should be some indentation. That means the line should not start from the beginning, but you put either some spaces or a tab so that there is some indentation. And let's change it to multiply it so that it matches our schematic. Print x asterisk 2, and then we say print done. So let's run this. So we get 2 4 6 8, just like in this diagram. So one by one, so how this iteration works is, so for loop takes x variable in this list. So in the first iteration, x is assigned a value of 1, and then print x multiplied by 2. In second iteration, x is assigned value of 2, then x multiplied by 2, and so on. So that's how this works. And the advantage again is that in this, just it doesn't matter how many elements you have in your list. It could be 5, 500, or 5000. With just these 3 lines of code, you will be able to do this calculations. And you can do any calculation, not just one. You can have multiple things going on within the for loop. For example, you want to print multiply by 2, and you want to do square as well, so you can do that, something like this, or whatever code you want to do. Okay. Now this indentation part, this is the syntax part. Whenever there is a statement ending with colon, the subsequent line or the subsequent code block must be indented. So there has to be some space in the next line, and there should be at least one line with such indentation. So let's say if we do this, if we indent this also, we can have multiple lines with indentation. So if we do print done, this is also indented. Now this indentation, what this means is that whenever you are iterating through the list, do all those things which are indented. So in this case, it would print x multiplied by 2, and then it would say print done at each iteration. Okay, let's run this. So it says 2 done, 4 done, 6 done, and so on. Okay, so this is because this is indented. So if we remove the indentation, only the part which is indented gets executed at each iteration of the for loop. So basically, when you uh, close the indentation part, you are out of the for loop. Okay, I hope this concept is clear, that how this indentation relates to the for loop. Okay, now let's understand another important concept, which is conditionals. So here, so when we are doing coding, many a times we need to execute a uh, certain chunk of code only when a certain condition is met. If something is true, do something. If something is false, do something else. That kind of a approach, if you want to follow, then these conditional statements, we use these conditional statements. And so let's look at the syntax and how this works. So let's say we have x is equal to 6, y is equal to 5, and then we say if x greater than y. So whenever we have if, within parentheses there must be some conditional statement. So conditional statement means that the output of that conditional statement must be a boolean value. That means it should be either true or false. So if we say if x greater than y colon, again since there is a colon there should be indentation, colon print x is greater than y, and we say else colon indentation print x is less than y. Okay, so what this would do is, this would first check this condition, is x greater than y. If it is, then it would execute this thing and ignore the else part. If this is false, it would not execute this part and straight away go to the else part, that is print x is less than y. So let's run this. It says x is greater than y because x is 6 and y is 5. If you make it this 50, it says x is less than y because this condition is false. Okay, so I hope you are getting the sense of how this conditions work. Now let's change these. Let's make both x equals to 5 and y equals to 5, and now run this. It says x is less than y. Although both are 5, but still it says x is less than y. Can anybody guess why we are getting this output when both are equal? Program.
Sir, actually, it first checks if the first condition.
It should also tell that okay, the numbers are equal. So in that case, how will we go about? So in that case, we need to have another condition. We need to, just because if you think over the logic part of this, that we want to check whether the two numbers are which number is greater, and we also want to check whether they are equal or not. So just testing x is greater than y is not sufficient, logically speaking. So we need to check something else as well. So when we want to check multiple conditions, in those cases we use something called as else if. So the logic is that if this is true, do this, else if something else is true, do that, and if both our conditions are not true, then do the else part. So this is how the logic would look like. Let's say we have x is equal to 5, y equals 5, and we have if x greater than y colon, we say print x is greater than y. And then we say else if, that means if this is false, check another condition. So this time we are checking x is less than y colon, print x is less than y, else print x is equal to y. So if you look at the logic behind this thing, is what we are doing is we are testing whether x is greater than y in the first if part. Then we are checking if x is less than y. If both are false, that means x is neither greater than y and nor less than y, then x has to be equal to y. So that's why in else we are saying print x is equal to y. And that's how this code works. Okay. So that whenever you have if else statements, or whenever you have if elif else statements, any one of these gets executed, okay, depending on what conditions you have. All right, any questions? If, for, okay, then there's another kind of loop syntax that we have. This is called as while loop. Now while loop is like in for loop we have some things for some list elements for something, and for those elements we execute the for loop. But for while loop we execute while loop with some condition, that continue to execute the loop until some condition is true. As soon as condition is false, you stop the while loop. So that's where when you have conditional based looping, then we used while loop. And when we have some list to iterate or something else, then we'll use for loop. For example, let's say we have x is equal to 5, and we say while x less than 2 colon. So x less than 2, and then we say print x, and then we say print x is equal to x minus 1. Now notice this part, that in while loop we are testing some condition, and within the loop where there should be something that should change this x value. So let's first run this and see. So we get 5 4 3, and then it says loop is over. So in the first part you have x is equal to 5, it checks the condition whether x is greater than 2. Yes, this is true, so it prints 5, and then it decreases the value of x by 1, so now it's 4. Again the condition is true, so print 4, with 3 is true. When x is equal to 2, this is false, and this doesn't print 2. So notice that whenever you are using while loop, in your loop itself there should be something, some statement that changes the condition. For example, if you remove this statement, then this would be an infinite loop. It would never stop. Why it would never stop? Because x greater than 2 would always be true. There is nothing that is changing the value of x. So when you are using while loop, you need to be careful about this thing, that you change the variable or the condition that you are testing inside the loop. Okay. Now there are some ways to control the execution of loop. Let's say we sometimes when we are coding, we don't want to execute the loop throughout or the entire thing. We want to control the execution depending on some condition, and we want to maybe skip or discontinue the loop when we have some conditions met. For example, let's say we have for x in range 1 to 10. So range function basically would create a list of numbers from 1 to 9, in this case, one start position to 1 minus n position.
Sir, how to stop infinite loop?
You pressed in this, are you in Jupyter Notebook?
No,
Where are
sir,
you?
Visual
So
Studio Code.
Visual Studio, you need to press Control C in the terminal.
Okay, sir. And it damages our system if infinite loops go.
Yeah, it would use your RAM. Now it would be continuously your RAM would be utilized. So you won't be getting any output, and the process would keep running in the background.
So it damages our system or not?
Damages in the sense that it would slow down your system when you're working on, because the RAM is utilized whenever this any process or any command is executed. It's executed in your memory. So if you continue to run the loop, it would keep using the RAM. That's why, again, you don't want that.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, this controlling the execution. So let's say we have for x in range 1 to 10. So this range function is something we can use to generate a list of numbers. For example, let me just show you. So like this, you can have a range of 100 numbers or any numbers that you want using the range function. So in this case, we say for x in range 1 to 10, that means 1 to 10 would be 1 to 9, because 1 minus n position. And then we say if x equals to 5 colon, and then we say continue. And then outside if, notice this print statement is out of out of if condition, but part of for loop. This indentation, this is nested indentation. So in this part you have if, and this there is a double spacing. This double indentation represents that it is part of the for loop, and then if condition. And then we have uh, print x, which is part of the for loop. Use of OD print done. Use of print done. Oh, print, there is no use actually. It's just to give you an idea that okay, all the loop is done. That's the only thing. There is no specific reason why we need to print. We can just skip this also. Okay.
Sir, what is the use of continue?
Yeah, that's what I'm telling, why we need continue. So if you run this, now see the output. It says 1, 2, 3, 4. There is no 5. Then 6, 7, 8, 9, and done. Now we can skip the done part. If it is confusing you, you can just remove it. Now let's understand what continue is. So we are iterating through this list 1 to 9. So one by one, x is assigned the value of each of the elements. Now this if condition, we say when x is equal to 5, that is when x is 5, continue. Continue means skip the rest of the commands within the for loop and just go back to the iteration. So that's continue. So which means that when x is equal to 5, it would go down to continue, and it would not execute print x, and that's why there is no 5 here. Okay, I hope this makes sense. So if we say if x is equal to 3, this time there won't be any continue in this thing, or there won't be any 3 when we have x is equal to 3 continue. So that this logic is used whenever you want to skip the execution under certain conditions. So depending on what conditions you have, you can skip the for loop and continue with the for loop.
Sir, I have a
Now,
question.
yeah, go ahead.
Sir, where you have written continue, can we replace that with past and the result will be the same?
Can it pass? No, pass is not working.
Got it.
Continue works. Okay. There is another keyword that can be used to control the execution, which is break keyword. Very similar what we saw before. The only difference is with break, it would just stop the for loop. It won't go till the end, then till the entire for loop. It would break the for loop. For example, if we have for x in range 1 to 10, just like above, if x is equal to 5, break. So if we run this, and you can remove this is just to help you. So 1 2 3 4. Why? Because after this 4, x becomes 5, and when x is equal to 5, this if condition is true, and then we have break. So it would just break the for loop, and it would not go till 9 6 7 8 9. It won't do that. Okay. All right. So any questions? I hope you have understood the if conditionals and loops. Just to check whether you have understood or not, let's take this quiz. Take a list of first 10 numbers and print the square for even numbers. Okay. So you have a list of 10 numbers, 1 to 10, and then you need to print square of only the even numbers. So just see if you can write this code. Here you'll need both for loop and if condition. Just see if you can follow and write this code. And once you have this code, you can copy paste in the chat box. So hint is there. So for, because okay, in this case there might be the if part is slightly it's somewhat we have not this is something that we have not discussed so far, because there is a certain operator that we can use to check whether the number is even or not. That operator we have not discussed, but I hope you have, if you have gone through the chapter on variables, you should know that operator. Okay, so I think in the interest of time, I'll just show the answer. So we have for x x in range 1 to for x in range 1 to 11, because we need 10 numbers, so we'll use 1 plus 10, so that we can have 10 numbers. So 1 to 10, if x, this percentage symbol is called as modulo. So how this modulo works is, it gives you the, when you have, let's say, 8 divided by 2, it gives you 4. That's the quotient. And let's say if you want to have the remainder, what is the remainder when you divide 8 by 2? So then you use percentage symbol. So when you divide 8 by 2, the remainder is 0. So what we are checking here is that if x modulo 2, or the when you divide x by 2, what is the remainder? If remainder is 0, equal to 0, then print x raised to the power 2, because we want to print squares. Okay, square. Else continue. So if we run this, it would shows the squares for the even numbers only, because this condition would be true only when a number is even. If a number is odd, this would be false. Okay.
Sir, if condition is not true in this condition, then what output is?
Okay, if condition is not true, okay, then we can just do, okay, that's another question, why continue here? So because we want to just continue, we can remove the else part, there is no need for, but we can say print number is odd. So you see now the for loop, so our list is, let me just print the list also, so that it's easier. Yeah. So this is our list 1 to 10, and then we have the for loop for x in range, this list. So now in the first iteration, x value would be 1. So this condition would be false, and it would print else print number is odd. In the second iteration, this would be true, and it would print the square 4, and so on, and like that. So if either we can have continue here, continue basically is a placeholder here, it basically says just continue with the loop, don't do anything, so it would just print this. If we don't want else, since we are not doing anything, we can altogether remove the else part and still we'll get the same output. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. That's how you can work with the loops. So this is how, and this is very frequently used, this if conditions and for loops, these are very frequently used together, and so we need to practice this thing, that how it works. Okay. Now another important thing is taking user input, because so far what we have seen is we have all the variable values within the code, and generally that's how not it is. We take some input from the user and do some calculations and then gives the output to the user. So to take input from the user, there is a function uh, name input. So input function, and if you run this, so you can take input. But generally when we use input function, we give some message to the user that okay, what is it that user should input, because how would user know what did the user need to input. So for example, we say enter your name, and then we say print x. Let's run this. So now it says enter your name, so user now knows that okay, I have to enter my name, so it prints x. Or if you say enter a number 5, print x. Okay, that's how you can take a input from user. Now let's say we want to write a program that takes some input from the user uh, and multiply it by 5, let's say, do some multiplication. So we say enter a number, and then we say asterisk 3. So we run this. So I enter 5, and the output I am expecting is 5 multiplied by 3, that is 15. So if we run this, the output we get is 555. Can anyone guess what's going on? Instead of 15, because 5 multiplied by 3 is 15, but we got 555.
But actually, we have not specified that it is integer.
Yes,
It
you
is
have
taking
not.
it as
Yeah, so it default, yeah. So every variable has a data type associated with it, has a value of course and a data type. So when we say x equals input something, so by default whatever is the input is assigned a strings data type. Okay, so we can check that. Type x, if you run this, So it says class string. So since it's a variable of class string, we get, so this is string concatenation. It does string concatenation rather than multiplication. So we have 5 plus 5 plus 5, that is 555. Now let's say we want to do actual mathematics. We don't want 555 as output, we want to do some maths. So what we need to do is we need to convert this to int data type and then do the calculations. So it's 15. So either you can do it in 2 steps, or you can also use this conversion right at the time of input. That's a shortcut way of doing the same thing. So while taking input, you are changing the input to int and then you are doing the calculations. Okay. Any questions on the input part? Okay, so now I think you should be able to do this part. So write a program to get 2 numbers from the user and print the sum of the 2 numbers. This should be easy. So this time you need to take 2 inputs because you want 2 numbers from the user, and then you will just print the sum of the 2 numbers. And of course you will need to change the data type of the 2 numbers to int before you do any calculations. Okay, so we say num1 equals input enter first number, num2 equals input enter second number, then we say print the sum of 2 numbers is comma int num1 plus int num2. That's another way of doing the same thing. Instead of changing the data type while taking the input, you can also change data type while you're doing calculations. So if you do run this, it says 5, enter first number and enter second number 4. So the sum of 2 numbers is 9. Okay. Any questions so far? No? Okay then. So now, since yesterday many of you were into this, that okay, we need to do biology, let's start with the biology part. And tomorrow, of course, we'll be doing bioinformatics or BioPython. So let's say you have a DNA sequence, write a program to calculate number of A's, adenine in it. So take this as an assignment, whatever you have learned so far. You have make some DNA sequence, any variable, some DNA sequence, and you need to write a program that should calculate the number of A's in the sequence. Okay. So just see if you can do this. So let's say you have some variable, I'm calling it DNA underscore seq equals, I have given some sequence. This could be any sequence that you like. And then what we want to do is we want to calculate how many times A appear in this sequence. Okay. So just think over this, that what code can you write to get sequence. Yes, commands are case sensitive. Yes. I mean, you cannot have like print hi works, but if you change it to, let's say, print hi, it won't work. This is an error. Okay, so it is case sensitive. Of course, what you type inside, that doesn't matter. You can do anything. Yeah. Okay. So think over this assignment of how would you calculate A's, number of adenines in a DNA sequence. And let me give you a hint that in Python, strings are lists. So any string in Python is a list of characters. Okay, so that means this entire thing is a list in Python. So just think over this, try to do some coding, and maybe tomorrow we can continue with this, at how we can calculate this thing. OOPS concept in Python. Object oriented programming. See, you mean functions and classes? If that what you mean, that would mean, then it would be difficult to cover all these in functions and classes. Yes, see, functions. There's a chapter in the book on functions. You can go through that chapter, but covering the entire functions and classes right now would be difficult because we have not covered many things that we should have covered to when before we go to functions. So I think it will be tough, but if you have any questions, just go through the functions chapter, and if you have any questions, feel free to email me and we can discuss offline. Okay. Yeah. Any other questions? Anything else? And for tomorrow's session, make sure you have Anaconda installed and you can go to the chapter on the last chapter. Let me go to that. Introduction to BioPython. So this is the function chapter I was talking about. So you need to run this command, pip install biopython. Just run this command in a Jupyter notebook itself you can run, or if you're using some other like VS Code or wherever, you can run this command and this will install biopython. So once you have biopython installed, we can use functions within biopython. This will start tomorrow. But till then, just think over this thing, that given a DNA sequence, how will you calculate number of adenines in that sequence? Okay, and we'll first try to answer this question tomorrow. And a related question, yeah, any questions?
Can you please provide your email ID, sir?
Email ID is there in the book, and you can, I'll share it out here also by yeah, that's my
Sir,
email
I
ID.
wanted to ask a question related to for loop.
Yes.
So, sir, when we use like for I in range something like 1 to 11,
Yeah.
and then we use for j in the same for loop, we use nested for loop for j,
Yeah.
like for some. So what does it do? Like for horizontal, it goes one time and then vertical. Or like,
Are you talking about something like this?
yes, sir, exactly this.
So in this case, what you are doing is you have two variables and two lists. So this is generally used when you want to do all versus all comparison. So what that means is you have 10 things and you have another 10 things, and you want to compare each of these 10 with each of these 10, all versus all. So if you do here print I comma j, so first count, okay, you have used count function, fine. Okay, I have not given range here. So to answer your question, now if you look at this, so we have for link of the book again. Okay, I can send the link again. Yeah, you see the loop output here. Okay, so I have
Yes,
shared the link. Yeah, so see, we say print I comma j. So first it would take these, I value is 1, so all i's are 1, and it would go till one by one iterate through j. And then in the second round, when all the j's are done with 1 to 10 or 1 to 9, then it would go back to the for loop, and now I would be 2. So it would take 2's, all 2 i's, and then 1 by 1, 1 to 9j, and then 3i, and then 1 to 9j, and so on. So what we are basically doing, we are taking two lists and doing all versus all calculations or whatever you want to do. Does that answer your question?
got it.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay. Yeah. So yes, count function can be used. Okay. But in count function, yeah, you have used lists. So try to do this with for loop. See if you can. Okay, so now we already have answer to this. So let's try this. How will you, given a DNA sequence, how will you calculate its GC content? Let's increase the difficulty level here. So I hope you got the question. So you have a DNA sequence and you want to calculate the GC content. Now what's the GC content? Okay. So both of these questions, that how you calculate number of A's and how you calculate the GC content of a DNA sequence, will, based on what we have learned so far for and int conditions, if conditions. So we will cover that tomorrow. Start that before we start tomorrow BioPython. Okay. Anything else? Anyone? Any questions? Doubts? Okay. So if not, then we can end this session, and I'll see you tomorrow. Okay.
Sir, hello.
Yes. Yes. Go ahead.
Sir, but in schedule they said tomorrow is our off day.
Tomorrow, because it says today there is a 2-hour session, but that's not the case. Today there is not a 2-hour session. We have tomorrow's session.
Okay, sir, I understood.
Yeah.